In Ireland, a stately manor is scarred by a lonely woman's dance with the devil. While in southern Spain, a double agent becomes a literary inspiration in a hotel for spies. And on the island of Puerto Rico, a man betrays his sacred oath to guard the secret of the Fountain of Youth. Join me on a journey to these and other fabled places where love pushes people over the edge. I'm Josh Gates. I've traveled millions of miles and explored over 100 countries. The whole wall is literally disintegrating. It's collapsing! And my favorite destinations have epic tales to tell. These are the stories and the secrets of those legendary locations. On the southeastern coast of Ireland, on a bleak and desolate peninsula, stands a grand estate, rumored to be afflicted by a 250-year-old curse. This place once gave shelter to the house guest from hell. And if you believe the stories, the secrets of the family who lived there are literally buried in the walls. Hook Peninsula is a 23-square-mile spit of land that extends out into the frigid and stormy Irish Sea. This windswept landscape is home to not only one of the oldest lighthouses in the world, but also to the eerie and unsettling Loftus Hall. Loftus Hall is a 700-year-old manor that sits on 63 acres of land. Legend has it, this region was once the site of ritual sacrifices performed by pagan Celts. But that's not the tale that put this spot on the list of Ireland's spookiest places. This is. In the 18th century, when the Loftus family lived here, the remote location received few visitors, at least of the human kind. In the year 1765, as a torrential rainstorm batters the peninsula, 21-year-old Lady Anne Tottenham stays warm by the fire with her father Charles and stepmother Anne Loftus. Lady Anne can't wait to find a suitable man to marry so she can leave this cold, isolated house behind. Suddenly, there's a loud banging on the front door. They open it to reveal a handsome, weather-beaten man. He tells the family he was sailing to Wexford when his boat crashed on the shore, leaving him the sole survivor. Lady Anne is thrilled by the stranger's arrival. After all, there weren't exactly a whole lot of dating opportunities for a young woman out here in pre-Tinder times. This guy seemed like a gift from the love gods, but as you'll see, she probably should have swiped left.
This is the room where the stranger would have slept. Because Anne was an unmarried woman, any visiting male guest would have been kept to the other side of the house.
Despite their distant sleeping arrangements, it's believed that Lady Anne and the mysterious gentleman start spending a lot of time together. She shows him around the grounds of her family's estate and leads him down to their private beach. Curiously, though the stranger claims to have been shipwrecked, there's no sign of his damaged boat washed ashore. But Lady Anne is too enamored to take notice. Days turn to weeks, and while most guests would have been politely sent packing by now, the stranger seemingly has the entire family bewitched. But according to the tale, all that was about to end. One night during a card game, Lady Anne accidentally drops a card on the floor, and as she goes to retrieve it, she realizes that strange things are afoot. Anne is horrified to discover that her Prince Charming is actually the Prince of Darkness. Anne's father orders him out of the house. The stranger grows angry and shouts back.
I'll leave, but you'll never
In a fit of rage, he spontaneously combusts into a massive fireball that shoots up through the ceiling, leaving behind a large hole and the strong smell of sulfur. It is said that the shock of discovering her beloved is the devil drives Anne insane, and she never speaks again. But before you write off this tale as pure fiction, let's have a closer look at the room where Anne's sinister suitor supposedly made his infernal exit.
Wow, so this is where the legend of Loftus Hall would have started.
The legend has it in this very room, sitting at this table in that chair, that the devil turned into a fiery ball and exited through the ceiling.
Over the past 250 plus years since the alleged event, everyone who's lived here has attempted to patch that corner. But inevitably, it crumbles and reverts back to this. And it turns out the hole in the ceiling wasn't the only parting gift the devil left behind. Months after his hasty exit, the family discovers that Lady Anne is pregnant. Anne's parents lock her in the tapestry room, where she's forced to endure childbirth alone. During the difficult labor, she dies. But what about the baby? Some locals claim that, fearing the baby is the spawn of Satan, Anne's stepmother entered the room, killed the child herself, and then sealed the baby's body in a wall of the house. Because of this, they say Lady Anne's soul has never found peace. In fact, there have been reports of hundreds of sightings of her ghost wandering the house at night. While this may sound like your average run-of-the-mill Irish devil ghost mutant baby legend, consider this. When the Loftus family descendants remodeled the home in 1884, one of the workers made a terrifying discovery. Buried in the wall, they found the skeleton of a small child. To this day, the bones have never been identified. 1,100 miles away in the south of Spain, there was a different kind of evil being perpetrated by the Nazis during World War II. This area was a hotbed of intrigue, where James Bond novelist Ian Fleming met a sultry double agent who may have been the inspiration for his very first Bond girl. Algeciras, Spain, is a port city where the fishing boats leave early in the morning. Cargo ships unload containers from around the world, and locals sip coffee while staring out at the blue waters of the Bay of Gibraltar. If you're looking for a place to stay in Algeciras, it's hard to do better than the Hotel Reina Cristina. Since its opening in 1901, guests have included such luminaries as Charles de Gaulle and Orson Welles. They probably came here for the same reason Axis and Allied spies came during World War II: the unparalleled views of the Gibraltar Peninsula, a strategically valuable strip of land controlled by the British. It's 1943, and Larissa Swirsky is a secret agent for the Nazis. Her assignment is to keep tabs on naval maneuvers around the Strait of Gibraltar, which the British are using to control ship traffic in and out of the Mediterranean. The intelligence she gathers will help the Nazis as they prepare an invasion plan for Gibraltar. Codename Operation Felix. Before the war, Larissa worked in Paris as a photographer and palled around with the likes of Coco Chanel and Salvador Dali. Reportedly of royal Russian heritage, she hates the Soviets and communism with a passion. So when the USSR's enemy, Germany, tried to recruit Larissa, she said, "Sign me up." Allegedly unaware of the Nazis' nefarious activities throughout Europe. Spanish journalist Juan Jose Tellez says Larissa was among an assortment of spies stationed at the Reina Cristina in the 1940s.
Spies from the German intelligence service lived here, and British spies from Gibraltar came here pretending to have tea. That's why it was known as a spy route.
Here at the hotel, while Larissa is busy spying for the Nazis, British agents have their hands full monitoring agents like her for the Allies. According to the story, among those prowling the Reina Cristina for the British side is a young lieutenant and future James Bond author, Ian Fleming. His mission? To shadow Nazis and potential Spanish saboteurs in the event of an alliance between Spain and Germany. And one of the spies he's keeping an eye on is Larissa. As the war progresses, Larissa uses her skills as a photographer to gather an archive of reconnaissance photos, including potential aerial targets around Gibraltar. In 1943, Axis forces blow up a fuel tank in Gibraltar's harbor. The Germans are eager to find out the extent of the damage caused to their enemies, but the area is closely guarded by British soldiers. So they assign Larissa to go undercover and infiltrate the British stronghold. If she's caught, it will most certainly mean death. The Reina Cristina Hotel in southern Spain is a luxury resort with an unobstructed view of British-controlled Gibraltar, which made it a hive of covert activity during World War II. It's also where, in 1943, Nazi spy Larissa Swirsky is about to undertake her most daring mission. Liana Romero has heard the story firsthand from Larissa, who happens to be her mother.
She knew that was very risky what she was doing, because to be a spy, an agent, is very dangerous. But her ideas were not political, and also she didn't know what the Germans were doing really in Europe.
Larissa sneaks into Gibraltar's harbor, snaps the photo she needs, and then heads back toward the Spanish border. As she walks along the shore, a man approaches her and asks for a light. Larissa calmly pulls out her lighter. But it doesn't work. The man remarks, "I guess you Nazis didn't even leave enough fuel for a cigarette lighter."
At that moment, she realized that she was exposed, and she was in panic.
The British arrest Larissa and take her to their headquarters.
The British took her inside the room, ordered her to undress, and interrogated her for a long time.
Larissa plays innocent, knowing full well that if she confesses and the British get their hands on the small spy camera hidden inside one of her gloves, she'll likely be executed. But despite hours of interrogation, Larissa never cracks, and the British finally let her go. Shortly after, Larissa gets a visit from her sister, who's a member of the French resistance. She clues Larissa in on the Nazi atrocities being perpetrated in other parts of Europe. The next day, Larissa goes straight to British authorities in Gibraltar and offers her services as a double agent.
Larissa Swirsky's British code name was the Queen of Hearts. She went on to become a valuable double agent who was able to extract important information from the Nazis because they believed she worked exclusively for them.
And Larissa's point of contact at the Hotel Reina Cristina? Ian Fleming. It's widely believed that in his inaugural Bond thriller, Casino Royale, Fleming used Larissa as the model for femme fatale Vesper Lynd, the very first Bond girl.
My mother was very amused, recognizing herself on the role of the Bond's girls.
But Larissa inspired more than just the idea of the sexy female spy. During the war, she also gathered intelligence about Italian frogmen who stored torpedoes in the hull of their ship. With Larissa's intel, the British were able to stop their attacks. And if all of this sounds familiar, it's because Ian Fleming wrote about it in Thunderball. Today, there's considerably less spying going on inside the Hotel Reina Cristina. And with so much international trade at the nearby port, you're more likely to encounter shipping agents than double agents. But you don't have to be a spy to keep secrets, especially when those secrets involve torture and death. High on a hill in Slovakia looms the medieval castle of a serial killer who was so in love with herself, she'd do anything to hold on to her looks. And I do mean anything. The Slovakian countryside is covered with dense forests and snow-capped mountains. It's the kind of place you're almost not surprised to learn used to be part of Transylvania. Yes, that Transylvania. Nestled in a valley between the forest and the mountains is the village of Chaktice. And perched above town is the ruin of a castle straight out of a horror film. Chaktice Castle was built in the 13th century, when these lands belonged to the Kingdom of Hungary. It played host to the area's richest aristocrats, and one of those aristocrats ensured that it would live on in local lore forever. The year is 1580. Chaktice Castle is home to Countess Elizabeth Bathory. Few would guess that this cultured noblewoman is also a psychopath. Destined to become history's most prolific female serial killer.
Today, only 1 in 6 serial killers is a woman. No one knows how many there were in Elizabeth Bathory's time, but they had to be incredibly rare. Bathory was truly in a league of her own.
Slovakian lore holds that it was a single, seemingly innocuous moment that triggers Elizabeth's bloodlust. A servant brushes her hair too roughly, and the Countess flies into a rage. The slap draws blood that lands on her skin. Legend says that when Elizabeth rubs the blood away, she thinks her complexion suddenly looks more youthful. Thus begins her lifelong craving for more blood, to use as some sort of organic moisturizer. The bloody beauty satisfies her needs by luring young, unsuspecting village women to the castle with the promise of jobs. They have no idea they'll be murdered and drained of their blood. Ironic side note, the cellar that once served as Elizabeth's torture chamber in the Bathory Manor is now part of a winery.
Right now, we are in the Chaktice underground, and archaeologists unearthed some girls' skeletons here.
The Countess employed a staff of female torturers to do her bidding, which included lopping off victims' fingers with scissors, thrusting burning rods into their mouths, and ramming pins under their fingernails. Yikes, that seems excessive. And as the life drains from her victims, Elizabeth not only showers in their blood, but she even develops a taste for drinking it. Holy hemoglobin, how did this Countess become such a bloodhound? Well, there are those who believe that as a child, she was allowed to witness a brutal punishment, where a peasant was sewn alive into the belly of a horse. It may have warped her for life, but, you know, I'm no expert. The legend tells us that as Elizabeth ages, her insatiable desire for blood only increases. She expands her hit list by opening a school of etiquette and social graces that attracts girls from elite families. But her new tactic backfires. Not surprisingly, Hungary's aristocracy is more than a little upset about their missing daughters. And by 1609, rumors of Elizabeth's alleged atrocities reach the king. The royal authorities catch the Countess literally red-handed and place her under arrest. But her story isn't over just yet. Rest assured, the vampire of Chaktice Castle will die a most fitting death. Perched on a remote hillside, Slovakia's 13th century Chaktice Castle is the site of a legendary murder spree by history's most prolific female serial killer, Elizabeth Bathory, aka Countess Dracula, tortured and mutilated as many as 650 young women in her voracious lust for blood. But in 1609, the vein runs dry when she is finally arrested. I'll bet you're thinking she got the death penalty. Well, just like today, money talks. Only the peasant women who helped with the torture were executed. Elizabeth's punishment? The castle where she lured victims to their death would now serve as her permanent prison.
These are the ruins of Countess Bathory's bedroom. Her family walled her up inside here, brick by brick. No doors, no windows. They only left a slot so that plates of food could be passed to her.
After 4 years alone in her custom dungeon, Elizabeth dies in 1614. Today, you won't find much evidence of Bathory's time in Chakhtitse outside of this glum-looking statue in the main square. Oh, and there's also the wine that's stored in the cellar where the Countess did her torturing. The winemakers pay tribute to her legend with a fruity little red called, what else? Bathory blood. It's not wine, but hard liquor that got the man in our next story into trouble. The tale takes place 5,900 miles away in central Nevada, at a purportedly haunted hotel that once catered to the most powerful men of the 20th century. And one of these men found himself dead center of a precarious political conspiracy. Located midway between Reno and Vegas, Tonopah, Nevada, population 2,500, is well off the beaten path. This former mining boomtown may have seen livelier times, but there's one attraction that still draws the tourists. No, it's not the kitschy and terrifying Clown Motel. I'm talking about the Mizpah Hotel. Originally built in 1907, the Mizpah, which means watchtower in Hebrew, made headlines from the day it opened as the finest hotel in the West. Dubbed the Jewel of the Desert, it quickly became a hotspot for the rich and famous. Stroll through the Edwardian-era rooms, and you're transported back to the days when notable luminaries would mingle with Wild West icons. Kanani Pinkerton works at the hotel and is more than happy to share stories from the Mizpah's glory days.
Legend has it, the boxer Jack Dempsey was a bouncer here within the hotel. Wyatt Earp used to enjoy his time here, and the famous billionaire Howard Hughes liked it so much, he got married here.
Local stories suggest there are also some non-paying guests at the Mizpah that checked in and never checked out, if you know what I mean. In fact, this place has been dubbed the most haunted hotel in America. But what truly keeps the Mizpah on the map is a legend, one of death, deception, and dirty politics. It's November 1940. 68-year-old Democrat Key Pittman is running for re-election to the U.S. Senate. He's on the verge of winning his 6th term in office and doesn't seem too worried. Leading up to the holiday season and the final days of the race, he's busy campaigning, aka drinking his way across Nevada.
Senator Pittman was a legendary drinker. He was once seen shooting out the streetlights in a drunken daze. His wife was named Mimosa. No, I'm not kidding.
According to the legend, the day before the election, Pittman's campaign caravan/pub crawl pulls into the Mizpah Hotel, and soon the senator finds himself at the bottom of a whiskey bottle. While there may not be term limits in Congress, there are limits on the human body. And after days of wetting his whistle, the inebriated incumbent collapses. The story goes that before the press gets wind of the incident, Pittman's aides gather him up and carry him to his room. Pittman's personal physician arrives, and after a brief exam, he offers his professional opinion. The senator's time is up. He has suffered a fatal heart attack. While I'm sure Senator Pittman's staff took an appropriate amount of time to grieve the tragic loss of their employer, politics is still politics, and they've still got an election to win, even if their candidate is, you know, a lame duck. The senators' team remains hopeful for a victory with a candidate who has a strong message but a weak pulse. Or rather, no pulse. And with just a few hours until the voting booths open, they hatch a diabolical scheme. Central Nevada's Mizpah Hotel has seen a lot of action in its century of operation, including serving as the site of one of the most outrageous political gambles in American history. According to the story, candidate Key Pittman drank his way to a heart attack the night before the 1940 Senate election. But his team doesn't think that should stand in the way of a win they worked so hard to achieve. The senator's staff knows that if the body is discovered before the election, the opposing party could win the seat. All they have to do is keep the press from finding out that their candidate has joined the other ghosts at the Mizpah. The senator's aides make an announcement to the press that Pittman is exhausted from campaigning and won't be making any appearances until after the election ends. Thankfully, the reporters buy it. Now they just have to figure out what to do with the senator's body. And what do Pittman's most trusted aides allegedly come up with? Well, the old weekend at Bernie's approach. It's said that they carry Pittman's lifeless body into the bathroom of his suite and place it in the bathtub. They then pour several buckets of ice into said tub. Over the next few days, while the votes are counted, Pittman just chills out. And when the election results are announced,
and the winner, Key Pittman.
It's good news for the corpse candidate. It's now safe for Pittman's staff to report the senator's death to the press. A short time later, the governor of Nevada appoints his replacement, a Democrat, a living one. The gamble paid off. Not surprisingly, several of the details in this story have been hotly debated, including where Pittman actually died.
There are some people in Reno believe it happened up there, but the locals here in Tonopah know it to be true.
Whether it happened in Reno or Tonopah, it is fact that Key Pittman had a heart attack on November 4th, 1940, the day before the election, but wasn't officially declared dead until November 10th. And then there's this little added bonus.
Many people have seen the ghost of the senator here in these halls.
Today, you can belly up to the same bar where Key Pittman might have taken his last drink. But please drink in moderation. As beautiful as the Mizpah is, it's already got more than its fair share of spirits. Unlike the dearly departed senator, there are those yearning to drink a brand of elixir believed to grant eternal life. Take Ponce de Leon, who led a quest for the Fountain of Youth. He never found it, obviously, but there's a legend that claims it's in Puerto Rico and was once guarded by a warrior who was the last of his tribe. The only thing that could make him betray its secret location was a woman. A U.S. territory since 1898, the island of Puerto Rico lies between the Atlantic Ocean and the Caribbean Sea. The clear blue waters make the island an ideal spot for snorkeling and scuba diving. But it's rumored of another kind of water that has drawn explorers into Puerto Rico's vast cave system for centuries. I'm talking about the Fountain of Youth, that storied spring that supposedly restores health and grants eternal vitality to anyone who drinks or bathes in its waters. Sign me up. Gloria V. Gonzalez Mercado researches the island's geology and believes that Puerto Rico could indeed be home to some sort of therapeutic waters.
The caves here are limestone, and they are very rich in minerals. It's very helpful.
While I'm fairly certain this isn't the mythological Fountain of Youth, local legend suggests that not only is the fountain real, it's hidden somewhere inside one of Puerto Rico's 2,000 gorgeous grottos, and was once guarded by the country's indigenous Taíno people. During the 16th century, Spanish colonists in Puerto Rico reportedly heard whispers of a secret stream with mystical powers. But the colonists and their diseases had all but wiped out the Taino by the end of that century, and with them died the alleged location of this fabled fountain. Or maybe not. This is Cueva Ventana, or Window Cave, the site of a folktale about forbidden love. It's 1680. Salome, the daughter of a wealthy Spanish coffee baron, enjoys long walks by the banks of what is now known as the Arecibo River. But she has no idea that she's being watched by the last surviving member of the Taino people, a warrior named Aruaca. One day, Salome's father insists that Juan, the son of a rich neighbor, accompanies her on her daily walk. As they stroll, Salome's distracted by a flower floating on the river. She climbs on the slippery rocks to grab it, only to lose her footing and tumble into the water. The cowardly Juan panics, and instead of attempting a rescue, he runs to get help. Thankfully, someone else is on lifeguard duty, Aruaca. Salome sinks under the current, losing consciousness. But before it's too late, Aruaca jumps in and saves her. When Salome opens her eyes, it's love at first sight. But when she learns that he is Taino, it puts a damper on things. A century earlier, the Taino had tried and failed to mount a rebellion against the Spanish, so a Spanish woman falling in love with a Taino man would be no bueno. But the heart wants what it wants. Salome and Aruaca meet in secret every day. It's not long before Salome's father becomes suspicious and decides to follow her. He's shocked to discover his daughter in the arms of a Taino warrior. Enraged, Salome's father takes aim at Aruaca, but Salome flings herself into the path of the bullet. Horrified that he's just shot his own daughter, her father flees. As Salome lies dying, Aruaca knows only one thing can save her. But following his heart will mean unveiling a secret he has sworn to keep forever. On the island of Puerto Rico, there's a story that a cave known as Cueva Ventana was once home to the mythical Fountain of Youth. Its location kept secret by Aruaca, the last Taino warrior. When Aruaca's true love is shot, he knows there's only one hope for her survival. He carries Salome to the Cueva Ventana and uses the fountain's healing waters to cleanse her wound. Aruaca says a prayer, and slowly, miraculously, the water works its magic. Though he is able to revive Salome, she's still very weak. So she asks Aruaca to go and tell her father that his bullet did not kill her. But when Aruaca arrives at the hacienda, Salome's trigger-happy pappy shoots him on sight. Aruaca dies before he can share the news that Salome, the woman they both love, is still alive. And although today an actual Fountain of Youth is nowhere to be found, the story says Salome spent the rest of her days in Cueva Ventana, carrying on Aruaca's legacy to guard the secret of the rejuvenating waters.
Locals call it Salome's Cave because often they hear a young woman laughing in the back of the cave or feel someone behind them. But when they turn around, no one is there.
Locations like the Cueva Ventana are proof that true love makes us do crazy things. But in Florida, there's a monument built in the name of unrequited love. Known as America's Stonehenge, it took 28 years to complete. But this impressive feat wasn't tackled by a full construction crew. No, this shrine to a sweetheart was built by just one man. And the secret of how he did it is as mysterious as love itself. 27 miles southwest of Miami, the city of Homestead marks the gateway to two popular destinations, the Florida Keys and Everglades National Park. But Homestead also boasts one of America's most unusual national treasures, a rocky wonderland called Coral Castle. Eight-foot stone walls enclose a rock garden featuring everything from a sculpted table shaped like Florida to models of the stars and planets. Despite Coral Castle's name, these blocks aren't coral, but oolite, a type of limestone that can be found just inches beneath southeastern Florida's topsoil. But perhaps the most noteworthy detail about Coral Castle is that every massive stone was cut, lifted, and placed by just one man, a small-statured stonemason named Ed Leedskalnin.
Coral Castle is really something that Ed made and left his footprint on this earth. And to this day, we really do not have all the answers of what Ed had meant to do. It's absolutely amazing.
The story behind Coral Castle starts in Latvia, 1913. Ed is over the moon about marrying Agnes, his one true love. But the day before the ceremony, she backs out. Heartbroken, Ed emigrates to the U.S., eventually settling in Florida, where he hopes to forget his troubles under the southern sun. But even the crystal blue waters of the Atlantic can't erase Agnes from his mind. Ed makes it his mission to memorialize his love, not just in his heart, but in stone. He begins carving elaborate oolite statues, including his and hers thrones, hoping that one day she'll join him. Fast forward to 1940. Ed has somehow single-handedly moved his imposing figures to a new home 10 miles away. He laments that 10,000 days have passed since Agnes dumped him, and faces facts that any chance of reconciliation is pretty much gone. Denied his true love, Ed chooses to live the rest of his life alone, just him and his ever-growing masterpiece. But he never reveals the secret of how one 5-foot-tall, 100-pound man with a 4th-grade education and no heavy machinery constructed an entire castle. To avoid prying eyes, he works only at night, stopping instantly when he senses the curious are watching. One day, neighbors in Homestead wake up to find a new stone structure soaring 25 feet high. Ed calls it his Polaris telescope. It's a single block of oolite, weighing 40,000 pounds. At the top, a hole. 100 feet away, in another rock, an eyepiece that lines up perfectly. At night, Ed would look through the eyepiece, and there was Polaris, the North Star.
Now, what's really amazing is Ed did this in 1940. He had no satellite GPS, no lasers, no fancy computer.
Precision aside, maybe the bigger question is, how does a featherweight like Ed manage to lift and place these giant blocks of stone at all? Well, there are those who believe Ed possesses a paranormal power, even claiming they've seen him move stones with his mind. Others speculated that Ed created an anti-gravity device using magnets, or that Coral Castle sat on a mystical energy vortex. Sure, that sounds right. The debate about his methods raged on for decades, but a recent discovery made right near Coral Castle revealed a wealth of evidence that could solve the mystery. In Homestead, Florida, the legendary Coral Castle stands as a Latvian immigrant's shrine to his lost love. Working in secret, Ed Liedskalnin moves and sculpts 1,100 tons of limestone, baffling neighbors and engineers for years. But recently, utility workers digging a trench near the castle made an accidental discovery that could finally solve the mystery once and for all: a hidden quarry. When they removed the dirt, what remained was a huge cavity Ed had secretly carved in the limestone. In it, they found an assortment of tools, including a tripod and a pulley and block and tackle for lifting. Ed's hidden tools suggest that basic leverage principles were the key to building Coral Castle. But the discovery doesn't fully explain how Ed did what he did.
His pulleys and his tripods could only reach about 10 feet above the ground. But how do you build a two-story building that's way taller than all of his tripods? No one can answer that question.
Ed never ceases work on the tribute to his former fiancée, earning a meager living offering daytime tours of Coral Castle for a dime. He dies in 1951 at age 64, still pining over his one true love. Today, despite being the product of a broken heart, Coral Castle has become a mecca for lovers, and even a popular wedding site. Though Ed never won back Agnes, the monument he built continues to inspire couples to strengthen their bond. Whether we're flirting with danger in search of it, risking everything to protect it, or devoting our life to honoring it, there are places around the world that prove there is nothing more powerful than love. I'm Josh Gates. Travel adventurously, and I'll see you next time on Legendary Locations.